Good morning, everybody. Welcome to DCC Today. Happy Friday to you. You've made it through another week. We're going to start. Our photo of the day was sent by Ross Hamilton, and this seemed really fitting. This is Railroad Bridge Park in the fall. I love the fall colors down there. So Ross, thank you very much for sending that in. Our announcements: Sunday we'll be continuing our study in the book of Job. I just have to tell you that the sermon this week it's a kind of a heavy one. Now, it's not kind of a heavy one, it's a very heavy one. So as you think about Sunday, you might just be praying for that people that need to hear it will hear it and that they'll be helped. You can join us online Sunday. Go to our website, dcchurch.org, or if you're one of our people that watches by DVD, those are ready for pickup on Saturday mornings. Or join us in person. Our service is at 9 a.m. and no reservations are necessary. Other things are coming up, or other thing that's coming up, I should say. I've mentioned this before this week. There is a camera club that is starting up, and they're going to be meeting on the third Monday of each month at 7 o'clock. And if you're interested in that, you should get hold of Shane Simonson, our communications director here at the church. And I think this is going to be a really fun group for people to get involved with. You don't need to have any special equipment. You don't have to be either video or stills. They're going to do a bit of both. If you even have just a cell phone with a camera in it, that's fine. Come on down. It's a chance really for some fellowship, to learn some new skills, and maybe even help us out with some of our photography and video needs around here at the church. So that camera club will be starting up soon, third Monday of the month, and get hold of Shane if you have more questions about that. Devotional thought for today. This comes from John chapter 14, verses 8 and 9. Philip said to him, to Jesus, "Lord, show us the Father, and it is enough for us." Jesus said to him, "Have I been with you so long, and you still do not know me, Philip? Whoever has seen me has seen the Father." Part of that verse makes me chuckle. And part of it I just find amazing. I love Philip, it says to Jesus, just show us the Father. Show us God, and that will be enough for us. Yeah, I would hope so, Philip, that would be enough for you. But then Jesus comes back and says, if you have seen me, you have seen the Father. You know, trying to visualize God, the eternal, omnipresent, omniscient creator of all things. How do we even begin to wrap our minds around who God is? And yet Jesus says, if you want to know who God is, if you want to see God, he says, all you have to do is know me. And as I've thought about that, it's caused me to think much more deeply about the account of Jesus' life that we see in the Gospels, and to keep asking myself as I read the story of Jesus' time here on earth, what does this tell me about God the Father, about the Trinity? Because Jesus said, if you have seen me, you have seen God. Well, I hope as you are doing your Bible study, as you are reading your New Testament, as you're thinking about the life of Christ, that you will just ask God to open your mind up more and more to see who he is as he has revealed himself through his Son, through Jesus. Well, we're going to continue. It's Friday, so we're going to continue on hearing some more of Glenn Brown's life story.
We had the graduation from Princeton. I received my Master of Theology, I think it was the end of May 1968. I had orders to report in July to the USS Okinawa, and it was the helicopter carrier that was scheduled later that year to go to Vietnam. The first few months aboard ship taken up with preparation and so on. November we sailed for Vietnam, arrived some 22 days later, and took on a large number of Marines, something like 1,800 reinforced battalion, plus a helicopter squadron, plus a skilled medical detachment. So our guest list was increased by about 2,000, and very shortly we went into operation up and down the coast of Vietnam. The helicopters would ferry the heavily armed Marines into the battle position, and they would engage the enemy. The wounded were brought back aboard the same helicopters. My battle station was on deck, where the helicopters would sit down, and I was one of the first that would see the wounded Marines when they were brought back to the ship. There was a young Marine, actually he was a Navy corpsman, but was attached to a Marine company that always sought me out when they were getting ready to embark, going out on a mission. And I'll never forget him. We just called him Doc, but he was a devout Christian. When he was aboard ship during on Sundays, he would always be at chapel, loved to sing the hymns. But he would find me, and his prayer request was always the same. Chaplain, I want you to pray with me. We're going out, and some of my Marines are going to get hit, and they'll call for me. I want you to pray that God will help me help them. And so we would have a prayer, just a brief prayer, and shake hands, and he would go get aboard the chopper. And then a few days later, after the mission was completed, he'd be back aboard ship, and he'd always be there on chapel Sunday. And one day he came to me, and he said, "Hey, Chaplain, I noticed you've got an electric organ way up there on the hangar deck, and I'd never seen that organ before. I'm an organist. I'll play the organ for you when I come back from the next mission." And so I was happy as I could be, because all we were using was canned music. And so it was near the end of our second 2-month online that he came to me and said, "Now, Chaplain, we're going to be going out on a big mission," and we were getting ready to go back to Subic Bay for our periodic repair and replenishment and so on. And so he said, "Now, when you come back, I'll come aboard and I'll play that organ for you." And so we were looking forward to that. We went to Subic. We came back and discovered a group of Marines coming aboard that were dejected, looked like they were sad, unhappy. And it was then I heard the sad news that Doc had answered one of those cries for help, gone and to assist the Marines that had been hit by a shell. And while he was tending to them, another artillery shell came in and killed Doc and those he was tending to. And I sensed an overwhelming loss. Doc was a beloved Christian friend, as well as a delightful young man. And I didn't know his family, don't know his last name, but I still remember Doc with a great deal of affection. We received orders to return back to the States when our mission was completed in Vietnam. We had a short layover, maybe I think 4 or 5 days in Hong Kong. It was a very pleasant time, doing some extensive shopping and sightseeing. But we were all eager to get home, had a great trip. I had received my orders. I was scheduled to go to Barstow, which was a Marine Corps supply center. And once again, I was with the Marines, this time for 3 years. I was senior chaplain there. I was promoted to commander while I was there at the beginning of my tour in 1970. Had a productive 3 years. We had a great chapel. The general on whose staff I was serving was General Olson. Never saw him in chapel, but his wife was a regular attender. So, we had some wonderful Marine Christians. One thing that we did, this was back during the time when the young people were in a really rebellious mood across the United States, and we would have a lot of these young people standing alongside our major highways. Barstow is where two major interstates come together, Interstate 15 and 25, I believe it is. But they were near the Marine Corps supply depot and the intersection, and I suggested we minister to these young men. So after chapel service each Sunday for a number of months, we took sandwiches, cold drinks, and went out and invited these young men that were hitchhiking to come and have something to eat and something to drink. And we passed out some gospel literature, and don't know what was the result, but it was a good challenge to the Marines, and it was a good contrast. These young Marines ministering the gospel to these young men who were in protesting the thing that the Marines stood for. Near the end of my tour in Barstow, 1973, I received orders to the Senior Chaplains School in Newport, Rhode Island. This was another signal that the Navy had selected me for future advancement. This was a special select course for chaplains that were designated as potential senior chaplains. And it was a great course. They brought in professors from the select schools on the East Coast, Harvard, Yale, University of Pennsylvania, and various seminaries. I had received orders out of the chaplain school to the island of Okinawa. Following World War II, we had had a huge base of Marines in Okinawa, and I was selected to be the senior chaplain at the largest base that the Marines had outside the United States. It was Camp Hansen. There was a Marine regiment. The regimental commander was also the base commander, and it happened that the commander and I arrived the same week. We were there together for 13 months. His name was Colonel Gray, great leader. The base there had been formerly led before he came by a Marine colonel that was a drunkard and a womanizer and a poor leader, and base morale was as low as it could be. And Colonel Gray revolutionized the base. His quality of leadership was recognized by the Marine Corps, and later he became Commandant, 4-star general at of the Marine Corps. And I loved working with General Gray, or at that time Colonel Gray. He was an inspiring leader and attended chapel occasionally, though he wasn't especially religious, but very moral, extremely moral, and set a great standard and a great example. We had a great ministry at Camp Hansen. We got the Marines to pitch a tent for us. We had a tent revival for a week. We had a lot of special activities going for the Marines. There was a very active servicemen's center ran by an evangelical servicemen center leader that was close to the base. So it was a good year. The bad thing about it, Donna and Celia could not come. I was 13 months without family, except for they gave us I think a 2-week leave period where we could fly home during the 13 months. Sometimes the Navy tries to make up for a tour that is not considered the best as far as for family life is concerned. And so they give you a choice, and if they can fill it, they try to do so. I chose as my next duty station following the extended tour on Okinawa, Moffett Field. And wonder of wonders, they gave me what I had asked for. So Moffett Field is located there near, near San Jose, an area where all of Northern California seems to come together, and crowded, busy, traffic unbelievable. But we were set down right in the middle of it. But we were on base, so I could walk to the chapel, and it was a great duty station. We went there in 1975. 1976, we had an outdoor celebration of the 200th anniversary of the United States of America, and a number of great memories associated with the chapel at Moffett Field. I was a senior Protestant chaplain. There was a Catholic chaplain who was senior to me because he had been passed over for selection. And he was a rather taciturn individual and didn't have a great deal to say. I was coming up for promotion the next in 1977, so I was pretty sure that I would eventually outrank him. And chapel services there were fun. We had another Methodist chaplain that was also serving with me. And the family enjoyed it. Celia was in high school there at Mountain View, and went out for track and was enjoying running. And so it was a great place for families. In 1977, I came into the promotion zone for captain, and eagerly awaited the list that would come out from Washington. Terribly disappointed when I discovered my name wasn't on it. I knew that Colonel Gray had given me a super promotion evaluation, and all that I could possibly imagine had happened is that I'd got a low evaluation from Moffett Field. And so I usually didn't even look at my evaluations. They'd always been high. But I knew it was time to look this time, so I did. And I discovered not only the evaluation, but the worksheet that had gone along with it, filled out by this Catholic chaplain. And he had filled out an official form and essentially perjured himself. He wrote a number of falsehoods, and I quickly made a statement to the commanding officer, wrote a denial of the falsehoods, and the commander submitted a new form to Washington, but it was too late for the year 77. The chaplain, as well as the commanding officer, were due to retire in September, and so they would both soon be gone, and I left it in the hands of the Lord. I said, well, next year I think will be a better year for my promotion. I was sure it would be. And so I went about my duty, And one day, this would have been probably early September, I had a knock on my office door, and there stood the Catholic chaplain. He said, "Glenn, I got to talk to you." So I invited him in. I asked him if he'd like a seat. He said, "No, I think I better stand." And then he began a fantastic story, a sad story. He said, "Glenn, I've come to apologize. I want to beg your forgiveness." He said, "Years ago, a Protestant chaplain submitted a report on me that kept me from being promoted, and I vowed that if I ever got a chance to get revenge, I would do it." And he said, "You were my chance." He said, "I wrote a report specifically to keep you from being promoted." Apparently it worked. And then he began to, he broke down. He began to cry. And he said, "Can you possibly forgive me?" In my own nature, I couldn't. But God did a miracle in that office. A sense of compassion swept over me. I rose, took Joe in my arms, and we wept together. I forgave him. God removed every iota of bitterness, every sense of unforgiveness, which was not my nature. I'm very competitive, and I would have, in my own nature, I would have liked to have gotten some retribution, but God removed that. And the other miracle was that this self-centered, bitter Catholic chaplain had been able to come and ask my forgiveness. To me, that was beyond belief. It had to be the work of God, supernatural, tremendous, like raising the dead. And so I now was faced with a dilemma. Joe had confessed what he had done. Should I make it known to the world? I would need to if I was going to be promoted, because they had to know, the officials in Washington would have to know what had been behind the poor efficiency report. And I struggled with this, really struggled, because I had dreamed of having a great ministry in the Navy with a lot of influence, to, not for myself, but for the cause of Christ. And but what about this man? I almost felt like we had been in a situation like the Catholics have when they have a man in the confessional, and they have to keep it secret no matter how it may be. So I decided that rather than reveal what he had done, that I would retire from the Navy. And with mixed feeling, I submitted a letter of resignation in near the end of 1977.
Well, thanks for joining us today. I trust you have a great weekend, and that we will see you Sunday morning, one way or another, online or in person. And of course, we'll be back here on Monday morning with another installment of DCC Today. Until then, God bless.